How do you get up and say, I'm going to do this?
First thing is, what do I want to build? What's the big vision? And then what are the first steps?
People have this wrong idea that you throw enough money at something and it will just happen instantly.
If there's a will, there's a way.
Hello and welcome to Compassiviste Dialogues in another episode with myself, Ali, and I have a friend of mine, Priscilla, who's going to be on the show today, and we're going to talk about some personal ways of approaching activism and how to get this started and how to take your passion into action as opposed to just maintaining it as passion and keeping it inside and keeping it bottled up. How to spill that passion out. So, without further ado, I will let Priscilla introduce herself and tell us a little about how she got involved in understanding passion to activism and where her life has drawn there. Priscilla, hello, and thank you for being
Hello.
here. And tell us a little about Priscilla.
Hi, Ali, and everyone. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm very happy to be here. I am Priscilla Blanchot. I'm the founder of a branding agency called Carte Blanche. And I have been in branding for 20 plus years and traveled the world as a child. And I've seen a lot of things, and it's just kind of brewed in my and as I'm maturing and finding my passion of activism and being involved in sustainability, climate change, and it slowly, as my experience evolved in the world and being active in different groups, I figured out how to build a group of my own, how to communicate, organize a community. And so I'll be happy to talk about all this today.
Perfect. And before you start, I just want to let people know that I actually started the idea of Compassiviste with Priscilla, which is why she's back here, and I'm not going to forget that ever. The truth of it was I wanted to bring the thoughts together and formulate it in a way that I can present the thoughts in a tangible manner. And that was the beginning of organizing Compassiviste. And I showed up at Priscilla's door. I said, you need to help me put all of this few boxes that I have with me into one page. And so we started going through a lot of many hours of conversation to formulate this. And that's really where her passion came through. It wasn't so much, I'd say branding is just one portion of what she, does with her work. It's more so the passion of seeing where this is going, seeing where your passion is going as a person, and we created something that I still use today. We created a document that I still use today when I speak with people, because as much as things have grown, they were really the blueprint was there, and the blueprint that you built, that you built out of all the hours that we spoke together, is what I still use. So the reason I wanted to bring you here to speak of that blueprint is because a lot of people in my position who will go and establish a charity or establish a publishing house or a podcast, it's systemic steps that you take, and you need certain organizational skills and strategic skills to do those. So let's start there, because I think, how do you get up? How do you get up and say, I'm going to do this? That is the first question. So run us through your thought process of how that happens.
Well, a lot of it is as you said, organizing your thoughts. And for example, when you came to me, you had so many thoughts, right? And it was, how do we organize them and make them in a way that you can bring them in the market in a way that is logical, that will make sense to people. And so it is about, as you're moving along, testing, correcting. And I see a lot of progress with when we started and where you're now, even, the name change. I had mentioned, every point is important, even the name of your action or your community or your company, whatever. So you want to really outline everything that and also see the big picture, the big vision, and then kind of backstep and say, okay, where can I get started? What would be the first thing, the easiest thing to get started? And also assess, do you have money? What's the situation, right? Are you going to have money? Do you already have money? Do you have to go after money, or can you function without money? So far, I've had two communities, one in the sustainability and climate change. We are functioning so far without money. The vision is to have money at some point. But interesting enough, things evolve. And as we are developing, we've been approached by a higher nonprofit in Utah to because I mean, yeah, I didn't mention I'm in Utah, but it's we were approached to actually be under their wings, which would answer a lot of our problems. But we still want to control what we're doing. So, we're in negotiation, but there's some steps that are very logical. So if you're starting with nothing, first thing is, what do I want to build? What's the big vision? And then what are the first step? And then involving people to come along with you. So I know, Ali, it took you a few trials and error to find the right people. And that's same thing with me, that it's just part of the journey, right? There are people that will say, yes, I want to help you, but then at the end, they really don't. I mean, you just have to ask and see where this takes you. So that's the first step. And when you're very motivated by something, I think the one of another first step is also to see what exists already on the market. And so in my case, I wanted to, I knew after years of working with brands that were for profit, that didn't benefit humankind, I really wanted to pivot and bring my expertise for brands that are worth it, that are making a difference in humankind, that are, even if they're consumable products, let's say like the toothpaste, it's like, is there a way to make toothpaste that is not polluting with one single-use plastic, for example? Like, those are the companies with purpose that I wanted to pivot to. And I couldn't find in the market here locally a group that was interested in and that was happening with sustainability product, issues with recycling, issues with just a good living, and I thought, well, how come there's nothing? I really searched, I asked around, and the town over has a group. And I thought, why isn't this group happening in our town, in Salt Lake? And so I found somebody that had something, and then I really insisted with him. I met him a few times, and then I really convinced him, like, let's get this started. And then he trusted me enough. He gave me his list of little emails that he had, and since then I've been growing it. We get together every other month. I'm in conjunction. I reached out to the other group that already existed and said, I want to develop this in Salt Lake. Could we make this happen together, so that you have to also not want to burn bridges, right? So I didn't want to burn that bridge of just starting something and that person saying, well, she's stealing my thunder or something, right? Because that other group is in a smaller town, but it's very strong. It's working well. So I did reach out to that person, and she was absolutely awesome. She helped me organize a little more what worked, what didn't work. And we together decided, well, she's every other month. I'm going to do the other months that she doesn't have an event. So scattered our events. That way, in the whole valley, there's always every month an event. So also taking your competition, or I don't want to say competition, but taking allies along with you. So that is really like a first step, is looking if there's something that is already existing. Then from there, you have a better vision as to where you want to take this. Sometimes you're surprised by where things go. There is a lot of interest locally in bringing this kind of networking and educational group around sustainability and climate change. You have people at high job with the city or the state that are actually coming to me already and saying, "Hey, I want to host an event," or I'm happy to be a speaker on that topic. And so, when there is a gap in the market and you see it, grab it, because it's gonna end up just unfolding by itself if there's interest.
Amazing. And you're saying a lot there, which I will unpack. The basis of it is you're using a lot of the for-profit model, but you're switching your profit to a collective, to compassion, to making the world a better place. So you're saying instead of counting your movement or your action with money, count it with how much effect you're having socially. And using the same model, what is very important that you showed through everything you just said that you had to do to get to where you are now in establishing the cause that you are, is persistence. I mean, like you said,
Yes.
you went and met a few times and you talked and you convinced, and people should not expect, and I certainly can advocate for that as well. It took years. When we started talking, it was years ago. It took years for everybody to kind of keep banging at the door until it opens. People have this idea that even if you have money, people have this wrong idea that you throw enough money at something and it will just happen instantly, but it doesn't. Everything takes its fair share of time and persistence and effort and sweat. I mean, good things really don't happen easily, right? So that's part of the challenge bit. Now, beyond setting up, so the first part was really an issue of setting yourself up, finding what is missing and doing that. And when you say that, it also reminds me of not having an ego when you go out there if you're really looking to do good, because some people will come into a space where there are, for example, in a community, 10 animal rights activists and no children rights activists, for example. And they will not do the children rights activists. They will go and become the 11th animal rights activist because,
Mhm.
the ego is great, and they think that's where they want to be and whatnot. So people should really look into what's missing, like you said, and try to fill that gap in the missing space. Now, let's go into the organization a little more. If somebody was to follow a model of trial and error, as you put it, and try to figure out how they can scale up in the inner workings and corporate sponsorships, fundraisers, speaking to family, friends, beneficiaries, their own money, however it is, how did you find success in, as you said, pushing the limits without any money, until now you are in negotiations with a larger group to have the funding that eliminates your problems, as you say? And where is the integral moral vision of that, in the sense of, where do you say no? Where do you say yes? Do you sell yourself? Do you not? Right? Those are questions that everybody needs to know.
If people see value, you can just start with to develop this group. Nobody gave me anything. I didn't get anything. And I put Venmo because nobody has cash and I don't want to put like a tip jar, right? It's just, we want to be a little bit more professional. So the second time I actually put a sign, but I explained what I needed. I said, suggested $5. So I'm not asking for a crazy amount of money, right? But also I said, okay, right now I am actually spending my own money with MailChimp, because that way I can have a software that organizes all the contacts and I have them tagged and I can make more professional emails out there. So I explained to them already what I'm spending. And then I explained also what I'd like. I'd like to have a banner so that when we're somewhere, we can pull a big banner and people can see from far away across the room, oh, this is where it's happening. I'd like to have, a microphone and a speaker, because whatever community you decide to do, the most important thing is that your message comes across. And wherever you meet, that it be in a park, that it be in a food hall, a mall, whatever, a conference room, it is important that people understand the message and hear you. And I think there's nothing are very specific in your ask, then it resonates in people's mind. And they said, okay, I understand where she wants to take this. I understand she needs funding for this stuff. It's very basic when you start with no money, but transparency. And I think I know, and I don't think, I know that this is coming in the corporate world as well. People want transparency. They want to know where their money goes when you give to a nonprofit. They want to know how the money is going to be spent in an office. I mean, they want to know, the employees and the consumers. So same thing applies to any community you're going to start. Transparency and communication. And so when you're asking for money, you need to be very specific where you want things to go, and that's why you're asking for it.
And what you're saying is essentially to go very, very old school and be honest. That's what you're saying. You're saying just be honest. Say, look, I'm trying to advocate for this, and I'm trying to build a network for this to do some good, whether it's educational or philanthropic or however charitable it is or not. At the end of the day, what you should tell people is, like you said, I need a microphone, and here are the 3 microphones that I could purchase, and these are the prices of them, and I just want somebody to pay for the microphone. So if you could please donate towards the microphone. And people say, of course she needs a microphone. She's yelling across, the hall, trying to get people to hear her. Yes, okay, I understand that. Here's my $20. And you're very right. People start giving, and you scale that same model up. And I was very recently involved in a project for a documentary, and it's the same thing. We were approached by a group for the show, and they wanted to fund the show. And if you went to them and said, we need this amount, they would just take a step back and say, what are you doing, right? But then when you break it down into the little details, like, of course the lawyer cost this, of course the videography cost this much, but yes, of course the set rent cost this much, and then they're shocked that it's so cheap. All of a sudden they're shocked that you're asking so little as well, right? So transparency goes a really long way. I appreciate that. Yeah, it does. Honesty, transparency, and that's all about really not looking for the profit, really looking to move the agenda, and that's what you're coming at, to move the agenda. And so go ahead.
I was going to add, so in the case of the microphone and speaker, as we don't have the funding, for example, right now to start, and at the beginning, when you don't have the funding, try to find somebody that has that equipment, for example, or whatever you need, right? Somebody that has whatever you need, and offer them to actually promote them in your event, even if it's not related. But so we were able to find somebody that's in a rock band that had a microphone and he came with 2 speakers. And then I asked him, like, what band are you on? When do you play? And when I opened the meeting and the get together, I said, oh, and let's thank Kenny for lending us this, and please go to this spot at that time and go and see him. Because that was very generous of him, and it kind of boosted his own.
You should mention Kenny here too, because
Yes.
you should mention Kenny everywhere, because he
Kenny
did.
everywhere.
Yeah, and they did, and they, like, that's what I mean, and people support and people help, even sometimes when it's not with money. I have used. There's a website in the UK where you can go out, and as a nonprofit, it's for nonprofits, you can go out there and post your needs, and people show up and they volunteer. They cannot donate on that website. There's no room for donation. So
Money.
right, but they can volunteer. So if you're doing something and somebody you need a website, for example, and somebody's generous enough to come there and say, I build websites for a living. I could do this on the weekends, and I'd love to be part of the cause. I don't have money, or I'm not that wealthy to give away $5,000 for us to build a website, but I am generous with my time because I can afford that. So sometimes, like you said, that people come together when it's a good cause. People, when you're honest, people come together. Now, you touched on something very brief there with Kenny: sponsorship, finding the money.
Yes.
Take us through. Now you have the meeting, now you have the microphone, now people attended. What is the step you take into financing yourself, essentially financing the project, taking it to the next level?
Want to host your event, or I want to pay for this, or let me do XYZ, right? Whatever it is. So that's the first step. Those are the best way, because it shows really value in what you've done when people are coming to you saying, hey, I really want to be part of this. So that's the easy way. Now, the next step is to actually put a little presentation together and knock on people's door, right? And saying, here is what I have. Like, could you donate? So I could go and ask maybe thing every 2 months. So that's 6 times a year. Maybe that's my next step for instead of having Kenny coming every time until we buy our own. But there are so many avenues.
Yes. If there's a will, there's a way.
If there's a will, there's a way, right? And so, but the next step to get bigger corporations, if they don't come on their own, is to actually go and do the old-fashioned way: is take an appointment, do a quick presentation. The problem that I'm finding is the bigger the company, sometimes the more narrow-minded they are, right? Because
and
there's
the more bureaucracy.
Yes, and the more bureaucracy they are.
But narrow-minded, yes.
Yeah, but I will say that in the climate change, sustainability, this compassivity way, it's more the emotions and the people's belief and values that move them to act.
Yes.
So if your community is really feeling something that's emotionally touching your consumer, people will say yes. People will say yes. Absolutely.
And that is sometimes the way to go, because you described the path we took. When I came to you, we created the presentation, and I was supposed to take that presentation to the higher places, the bigger corporations. And I am a difficult person because I know what I want to do for the world, and I'm not going to sell myself short. And you know this. And so I kept saying no to money. And it was funny because a few of my friends came to me and they said, you went around all of these appointments and you got more money than you could have asked for, and you rejected them and came back. It's like you're clowning around here. And I said, no, it's not actually clowning around. I want what I call smart money. And smart money is somebody who brings money and something more of value to the table. Because if you give me all the money in the world and nobody wants to be a part of what I'm doing, money can't walk. Money can't, take a shovel and dig in the ground and regenerate soil. Money can't do those things. Money can only buy the shovel. So, there's another saying: you can take the horse to the water, but you can't make it drink. So, you can't make the horse drink with money. And so, I realized the reason I'm saying no is because those corporations were narrow-minded in the ways that they were willing to support. And so, in this whole engagement of saying no and walking away and talking to people about why I'm saying no and speaking the truth, I started getting a lot of endorsement from people, friends, people who'd hear, media. They would say, this person rejected this person walked away from that, and this is this person's situation and story here. And so people came together. Somebody wants to come and be a part of this, another person wants to be a part of the publishing, a person wants to be a part of the podcast setup. So everybody came along, and the money that I would have had to take to put banners of people's that I didn't want in certain places, I actually got from people who I want to be a part of what I'm doing. See, I'm glad you're here because I like you being part of what I'm doing, because there was a lot of, spirituality, a spiritual connection for us to get to this place. It was not a business composition. Whereas if it was a business composition, you would be one of the people that I retained, I paid, I walked away. We were both happy. You got your money, I got my product, and I don't need to remember you. But because there was, care on both sides of the equation, we reached this point. So that evolution of, like you say, people coming together, people understanding what you're trying to do and resonating with them, I think brings people in. And so if we
And
put all
again,
those.
I was going to say, ever venture, when you're starting a community, in a sense, you're talking to yourself, right? You're
Mhm.
saying, okay, this is what I'm interested, but I'm one in billions of people, right?
Right.
There must be some other people interested in it. So you have to realize, who are you talking to? And this is where the branding background comes in, right? Because it's
Of
like,
course,
okay,
yeah.
I then know how to communicate to this crowd and also
100%.
resonate with them. So
You,
yeah.
and you did that with me as well. I remember when we were developing our ask, I was going to go and get an accountant to. I speak about you a lot, so I told people
Good.
about this. I said I was going to go get an accountant to actually create, some financial document that nobody understands other than accountants, to uh, put up on a website to ask for the money we need. And I said, who's going to understand it? That's, Priscilla said, who's going to read or understand this? You need something, artistic and creative that reflects your vision, because the people who are going to listen to you are going to be those people. And so we created a graph together. That graph has brought so many actual artists, people who have no financial backgrounds, musicians, actual painters, and they're like, it's so cool. You guys use this color and this shading, and you put a hellfire here and you put something else there, and I really like it. And I sit there and I say, wow, we created art with the ask instead of a financial document. So knowing your community, knowing your target, knowing your audience, knowing the people who are going to engage with you, what they are, who they are, is very important. So first of all, before we get to the conclusion of this, I want you to share with the audience what your two causes are, because this is, we're going to be promoting your causes. So we want you to share with the audience so that we can bring in more people who care about what you're doing.
Well, one of the cause, the first one I'll talk about is the one that's I would say it's not as humankind, but so I'm French and I lived all around the world when I was growing up, and it was very helpful for my parents to have a community of French people when they came into a new place, especially my mom. What school do I put my daughter? Where should we live? Doctors, how to get around and get this or that. I mean, when you are an expat somewhere, the community and your friends become your family, because you can't call grandma for help or whatever. So there is in Paris a headquarter called FIAF, Fédération Française des internationales des accueils. Anyway, and what it is you can actually create a community of French expats or French speaking, because now we are much more inclusive. You don't need to be French, but the idea is that you do have to be fluent in French, so that we keep up with the language, we keep up with our culture. But it's super helpful also for people when they come here in Salt Lake City. They know no one. I mean, granted, this is not, the middle of Africa, and it's not scary. The United States, we have all the comfort in the world and everybody could be fine. But meanwhile, it does give them a community. People come. I mean, now I'm impressed. They move with 5 kids, right? And all sorts of age. And where are we putting the different schools? And you don't want to be driving all around. You want to have these information. Also, just like after school programs, dentist, sometimes it's even like your hairdresser or whatever. And then every month we get together that it be in adults only or with children. And this community has actually spearheaded a lot of groups. So there is a group for children, age 0 to 6, where we wanted, and this actually got started because I had my own children, and growing up in the US without the French culture was just kind of crushing to me. I was just like, I need to give them my culture. So very early, we started with a friend of mine, this subgroup of this reading group where the kids, they sing French song. We read the classics in French. We do different activities, and that gave them a good foundation where now I can say they are really bicultural. When we only spend 3 weeks to 1 month a year in France, but my kids still are very bicultural, so that's great. So it's really giving that to the community, and also, there's what's a social security card, and where do I get my wine, because we're in Utah, so you got to go to a liquor store. I mean, there's all these little nuances. When people come and find this community, and they usually connect with a few couples, or people that they can relate to, and then sometimes off they go, we don't see them anymore, and they 3 years later will say, well, we're moving back to France, but thank you so much, you guys made my installation in Utah amazing. So that's the first
Okay.
community. This one was more practical. Now my second community is much more my belief, my value, and this is when I was saying, like, I wanted to do more work with the sustainability and climate change, and I couldn't find anything locally. There's a lot of startups, there's a lot of networking events, there's all sorts of things, but there was nothing around the topic of the earth, the climate, the what are we doing, and all the efforts are people are doing. Like, there's lots of amazing things getting done, but there's nowhere where it comes together locally. And so this is also under the umbrella of actually a British man that started this, I want to say 30 years ago, I think. It's called Green Drinks International. And funny enough, his website, if you search Green Drinks International, you'll find it. There's tons of chapter worldwide. And the website is kind of like a Craigslist. It's not very pretty. And I approached him, and he said it's on purpose. He doesn't want to brand it. He wants to keep it to the core, where it's just utilitarian. You want to connect with your community. This is all the chapters in the world. Go see if you have one. And then I don't love the name again.
Yes.
You know me, I'm a stickler with names, because people, when they think green drinks, they think smoothies, right? But his idea was, let's get together. I mean, he's British, right? Let's get together in a pub and drink and talk about green stuff and
Right.
the earth. So his mindset was in one way. But anyway, I started, and if you go on Green Drinks International, you'll see the Salt Lake City Green Drinks. And so this is where there was a Park City Green Drinks, a smaller one. This is when I spoke with her, and we arranged it. So every other month we have an event with speakers and people networking and exchanging values, ideas, and even just learning about what each other are doing within that space. And so last month we had it, this month we had, it was wonderful. We had 4 speakers around food waste, and everybody serving food waste, the issue of food waste, in a different way. Somebody, so it's the city, and they're collecting and composting the food waste from people. But then you have a company that does they do urban farming, but it's the person that came actually was the person that's just taking care of all the fruit trees. I mean, the people signing up to their program, but she's head of all the fruit trees. So there's tons of fruit trees around any city that are giving fruits that are just rotting because people don't pick up, or it's in a somewhere in a public space and people don't dare. So they have a program with volunteers, and they go, and as the summer goes, it's a different season from apricots to peaches, and they collect fruit trees. And then when it's the apple season, they even have a cider party where the people come with their apples and make ciders. So that's another way of dealing with food waste. And the people that actually also, I learned something, that do the composting. There is the composting where you have the breaking down of the elements, and it becomes this good dirt. But you also have a lot of gases coming out of it, and that becomes a biogas that they resell. So from your food waste, there's so many things you can do. And
Yes.
then another aspect of food waste, there was somebody there explaining also saving food from restaurants and supermarkets and giving that to the homeless. So around one topic, 4 speakers,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very educational. People were aware now of where they can even on their own go and drop the stuff, either for the homeless or for composting, depending on the stage of your waste. And so this community is really by passion and by also wanting myself to learn. I know there's so much getting done and people are not aware. And my idea is to really be a place where everybody can learn locally what we do, and hopefully,
Be
this will
involved.
spread.
Yes, and also, to add to the local experience with today's technology purposed to good cause. When you guys have the funding and you put up your website, you do all of that, you start recording these meetings and putting it up. People start viewing, even if they can't attend in person. Maybe they're a little further, maybe they're another part of the world, but you just gave tips on composting, you gave tips on biofuel, you gave certain tips that you learned. So as these transition in the community, it becomes a whole educational process. And with the kind of disasters that we are awakening to today, from a climate perspective, I mean, just now south of you is in turmoil. So it becomes more pressing, and people are looking for these avenues. People are searching more for them. People are willing to educate themselves more. Whereas 20 years ago, it was really hard to sit someone down and tell them, listen to me about carbon footprint. But now everybody's looking for a professor of some sort to say, what can I do? Where do I go? How do I be involved? So it's amazing that you're touching on the educational part of it, because you're right. That is really the most important aspect of all of this, to educate, to make awareness.
And my big vision is to it's not just local efforts like this. I have learned of startups with great ideas that are here, that I would like them it would like this to also be kind of an incubators of ideas, right?
Mhm.
And since we're like-minded people, and we have that passion for this topic, maybe then there is even more businesses that can come out of it. So that's, I want it to be educational and then an incubator. So I have big plans.
Well, we're gonna wait and find out about those pictures, but you do have the background.
Well, what I want, right, Ali, is I mean, everybody go on Green Drinks International. It's very easy. Edwin is very nice. Open a chapter, and it starts with just getting together in a pub. That was his idea, right? And then after, just spin it off as big or as little as you want it.
Perfect. So we will leave that at that. And people are going to go on green drinks and not think of smoothies and not think of pints of beer, but think of the environment is green, and sharing a drink to talk about the green of the environment. And as a parting lesson here, if somebody was to ask you in one sentence what your advice would be to move their passion from the soul to action, what would be your answer?
Do it. No, but
Just
it's
do it
like,
like Nike. Okay.
wherever you start, if you're passionate enough, you will find people. Don't let yourself also, if you're throwing events and you have 5 people, then keep at it. Consistency is very important. believe in what you're believing in, right? And it will come together. Also, as soon as you have people, I wanted to just also touch base about that. As soon as you have people interested with you, involve them. Don't think that I just want to steal the thunder and be the front of the group, right? It's like involve the people as soon as possible also, because if this grows, it can get out of hand really fast for you. So you want to have people that are involved in the organization with you, or communicating with people, knowing the software, answering emails.
Mhm.
The very basic is,
Yeah, there's a minimal
um,
viable presence that people can
yes,
connect to. You're right.
yes,
And
yes.
you're absolutely right again about the getting a lot of people involved, because at this point, I am a tourist in my own organization, because there are wonderful people who have taken over spaces that are performing tons and tons better than myself in that space. So, as you know, we have the publishing house, but I don't know how to run a publishing house. I just had an idea because I wanted to protest against all the cruelties that are going on in many different ways. But that's it. That's all I had. And like you said, just do it. I went out and I just did it. But now, all the like-minded people, like you say, came out, and all of a sudden, I have published authors, people from the publishing industry who are coming over here and saying, we want to be in this space because that's really what we've been dreaming of. We just never really went out to build it ourselves. We were scared, or we didn't know, or we were too busy. So now that it's available, we're coming. And they've taken over the space, really. And I'm there, trying to get an appointment to publish my old books with them.
And
So, yeah, it's beautiful,
that's
though.
the
It's beautiful.
that's the smart CEO. The smart
You know?
CEO will let people where their genius are go and do it, right?
Yes,
So
without wanting to be the shining star. That you were right. It's all about teamwork, and that's where it has to be. Well, Priscilla, thank you very much for joining us and sharing all these tips of how to get going. And now nobody has an excuse for not wanting to get up and do what they have to do. It's just a matter of getting off of that couch. That is the toughest first step. After that, everything rolls.
I would say a lot of it can already be from the couch. You create your email, you go on meetups, you just move people from your couch, and then you get together. Get off
There
your
you
couch
go.
and get
There you go. So even if you're not getting off your couch, you can still make this happen. You can still just do it from the couch. Lovely.
start from the couch and then get up.
There you
But
go.
I want to say thank you, because I see also from the start when we've worked, like your evolution, your journey, how it's evolved. And I'm loving it. And I'm thank you for having me, because I do want to be part of your movement. So
A lot of it is thanks to you, starting with the name. You were the first person who I approached with the name, and you looked at the name and you said no. And ever since then, I've been thinking of the name, and so it changed. It went from what it was to Compassiviste, and now it really makes sense. Everybody comes to the word and they feel the power of the word just in itself, and that is your first contribution of many, many contributions. So I'm always indebted to you. Thank you. And thank you
thank
for
you,
showing
Ali.
up here.
Thank you.
You take care.
Anytime. Thank you. You
All
too.
right. Thank you. And we will be back again on Compassiviste, again with another story and touching on social issues, and hope to see you then. Bye bye, everyone.